Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Paycheck. Hey, joining us today is Delegate Sam Rasoul, a delegate from the good Commonwealth of Virginia, from the area of Roanoke. But we're not really here to talk about that. There's something else we wanted to talk about to Sam about, and that's regards to the congressional race that is currently happening. The primary is underway, and all the candidates coming out of the woodwork to run in this race. But Sam is on the sidelines. He's like Messi. Right now, he's like warming up. He's warming up. Is the coach gonna put him in? We're about to find out. Maybe he'll announce it. I don't know. But Sam, there's something going on. We were talking about some poll results. What's happening, man?
Yeah, a poll just came out that was showing the top contenders, and I haven't declared that I'm running in the sixth congressional district, so I'm not a candidate yet. But it showed us, right there in the mix, and just as important for me is showing that 85% of the people in the sixth congressional district in Western Virginia believe that Israel is committing genocide, and 86% say we should stop sending them weapons. Um, I think what we find is that the while Gaza and Palestine isn't necessarily at the top of everyone's list, it certainly is a litmus test.
Mhm.
If you find somebody who's good on Palestine, they're probably good on everything else.
Exactly. Exactly. So right now we're showing the poll results here. We've got a few. There's two candidates who already entered the race. You're here. You're outperforming somebody who's already been in the race for a few months. And this was before they're asked about Palestine and Israel,
Right. Uh-huh.
or in the blue. And then once they tell people about you and your stances, you shoot up.
Yeah, I think that I think at the very top it has a link to the full poll results, but the it gives a bio. Um, you go right to the very top. There's a yellow button at the top.
Oh yeah.
There's a bio, I think, for each candidate, and people get to learn about all the candidates. And when you have kind of a more informed ballot, then that's what happens. While the other candidate's been running for 4 or 5 months, um, and I've been focused on the General Assembly. This kind of shows what would happen if people did have an informed ballot, and what would their thoughts be.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's definitely a feather in your cap, sir. How how does this make you feel? Where does this put your head at?
Well, for me, like there's lots of reasons why people would run. For me, it's always got to make sense for that, not only the politics, viability, etc., but does it make sense for my family? But it feels good to be right in the mix without having to do anything yet. What I would love is for more and more candidates to be able to be brave, and all across Virginia and all across the country. Um, Look, the reality is we're in this moment because we haven't been as courageous. It's like Groundhog's Day. 8, 9 years ago, we were in the same exact spot, and we're wondering, why are we back here under Trump, under this crazy regime, and it's because our party has not been able to be bold in very difficult times. I mean, you had the previous administration funded and endorsed this massive genocide, and Trump is just picking up where they left off.
So one of the questions I've stopped at is Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. 47% strongly agree. 37% agree. That is an overwhelming, huge. I can't even do math, but 50, that's like
About
one
80, about 85%,
85%.
um, believe that they're committing genocide in Gaza. and then about 86%, that question below, say that we should stop sending them weapons.
That's massive. That is huge. I mean, a year ago, we would never have anticipated anything like this, but the public has turned on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you had the breaking news: national security director just resigned for Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump is doing what Israel and the Israeli lobby want him to do, putting us in this terrible war, which seems like that there's these attacks on Iran. There's no good way out of it, and the president getting tricked by Netanyahu and the Israeli lobby to spend $1 billion a day. And Salam, I know you've um, been a huge advocate for feeding children, for free meals, for so many great things. I mean, imagine what we would be doing with $1 billion a day. It's pretty unreal that we just keep spending endless dollars to fund Israel's agenda.
I think we always had this understanding or thought that wars are fought for the many to win, but now war is fought for the few to gain. That's why we were in
Hmm.
Afghanistan for decades. We weren't there to win. We were there to make Halliburton money and make Dick Cheney millions and millions of dollars. I think similarly, that's what we're seeing here. How can Trump and his friends be enriched through the genocide of Gaza? We know the greater Israel project that they want to level it for casinos. We know Iran
Hmm.
is being attacked for what oil, most likely as what happened with Venezuela. So everybody's seeing through it, and that's what is really so wonderful about this Politico poll, that people are really fed up with politics as usual and they want change. So, when it comes to this type of change, is there anybody else in that seat in the CD6 who is pro Palestine?
I think that we haven't heard clear answers from candidates. We have one candidate. She a month ago made a statement that, well, there's good people on both sides. I don't know, some kind of statement like that, got attacked, and now she's walked it back and saying that she does believe it's a genocide. That she messed up, and so hats off to her to coming around and realizing that she needs to be on the right side of history. Um, and but I think all across Virginia, we're struggling to find congressional candidates who are going to bring the courage that we need to meet this moment.
Mhm.
And people are really tired of the nonsense from the political class, and especially those who are, and you can see it on the left and the right, with this resignation today, with some other people on the right who have voiced their opinions. They want something more. Um, and I always tell folks, I think Donald Trump exists because the Democrats, we enabled him by not offering a clear vision of what we believe to be, what's best for our country.
Now, joining us today is Delegate Sam Rasoul from Roanoke. Viewers, if you have any questions you want to ask Sam, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll give him an ask. But Sam, this is also all of this is coming out of people may not know what happened last year. You were vilified, attacked by the Democrats in Virginia, elected officials, people who are influential in the Democratic space. So seeing this and after that, but also being Palestinian yourself, like, what are you feeling?
Look, we always feel like we got a target on our back, and in particular, once this genocide started, we knew that they were going to stop at nothing. It's you know, and when we say they, I got attacked specifically for calling it out as Zionism.
Mhm.
Every single protest I go to, there is a Jewish brother or sister there on the front lines, advocating against this genocide, for pro-Palestinian rights, for human dignity, and people are delineating. While some folks would like to say this has something to do with Judaism, etc., it does not. It is a political ideology called Zionism that will stop at nothing to get what it wants, and we see that. We see, like, just Google this, like, go on, and you will find just in the past week that on film they had Israeli soldiers raping a Palestinian prisoner, them getting acquitted of these charges, and then taking one of the soldiers and parading him around um, Israeli television as though he's a national hero. Like, you know, this is a sickness that and so many of these brave Jewish brothers and sisters have stood up and said that this kind of Zionism does not represent me as a Jewish American, and that we've got to push back against it. And I did, and I do. And if folks want to sit there and try to defend this crazy ideology, history will certainly bat against them.
Yep. Zed is asking, when do you believe it will be a good time to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent?
I've been in electoral politics for 20 years and thought about lots of different things over the course of it. I remember a great Democrat sent me a letter after Trump was elected the first time and said, "Now is the time for you to leave the Democratic Party." Like, this is somebody who goes to these conventions, he's a diehard Democrat, and telling me this. And look, the reality is we don't have two major parties in the United States. We have two major coalitions. And the Democratic Party is a Democratic coalition made up of many different factions. And I believe that my faction is fighting with other factions, and we do that in primaries. We do that when we're setting the platform at the state and national level. We do that in other ways to try to claim oxygen for our faction and within the Democratic Party, because generally speaking, our values align within the Democratic Party. I just don't see in the short term how a third party or independent runs really can work and be viable with the way things are set up, and in part because the Democrats and Republicans work together to ensure that third parties and independents do not have a seat at the table. The last major time it happened was Ross Perot, for example. He got 19% of the popular vote running for president. They changed the rules of the debates because, like, in our debates anymore. So, an example of how things are, I would say, fight for the faction inside of the party, and don't be afraid to take that on.
Yeah, I think, and then the time before Ross Perot was the Bull Moose Party, and we saw how that split the party and ended up resulting in the other major party winning. That's always like, you can't have a third party unless you also have a fourth party coming in at the same time for it to really become an even playing field. One of the things that I was talking to you about, Sam, last week was my own foray into rural Virginia and speaking with folks about the issue regarding Palestine and how surprised I was about the feedback and the reception I got about it. I was in Lancaster County, Virginia, about 150 older white folks in the audience. So in my mind, they were conservative Democrats. I assumed it was an assumption. And you know what they say about assuming. And certainly I did. I'd make myself out to that. Because I was giving my stump speech and I was going through my experience, my policy platforms, and that's getting light applause. People like it. But it wasn't until I said, and for God's sake, we need to end the genocide in Gaza, that the entire room burst into applause. And so that was what I saw Labor Day weekend of last year from rural Virginia. And then I told a state elected official about this some months later, and she remarked, "What are we missing?" And I'm like, "You're missing a genocide. So, like, don't let the party hoodwink you into thinking it's anything but. And don't let the move you away from it as well." Like, we see APAC as now, like, has a blight across it, and they're trying to get their donors to donate directly to candidates now. So what are you seeing there, Sam?
Yeah, like it's not just APAC, and APAC has evolved past that very quickly. It's a network, right? And so, Track APAC, the entity is doing a good job of kind of keeping up with the network, um, and ensuring that associated brand new PACs or even the direct mega funders, these billionaires, um, are trying to figure out how they can go and buy elections. And you're exactly right. I mean, it is tainting these elections, and people are seeing right through it. And again, it's because it's like a litmus test. Can you be bought off? Are you going to allow these entities that clearly, don't have our best interests at heart when we're talking about billions of our tax dollars, $1 billion a day? We got Israel having us spend $1 billion a day to attack Iran, and then sending billions directly to Israel to commit a genocide in the West Bank, genocide in Gaza, ethnic cleansing happening right now in the West Bank, and ethnic cleansing happening in Lebanon because they're clearing out southern Lebanon right now. What about this is sustainable? There's nothing, and people are seeing through it. They're fed up, and they want their tax dollars spent to improve their communities.
Now, APAC has poured millions into Illinois' primary that's happening today. They even in the Kat Abu Ghazaleh Bis Bushra Amiwala primary, they're now trying to turn progressives amongst each other. So, with that being kind of the rough draft of what we could see during the rest of primary spring and summer, what do you think? Do you think that'll evolve in some way? Do you think that'll be the standard now moving forward, since we do have some crowded primaries in Virginia and throughout the country?
Yeah, we it's going to be a chess game, right? And it's going to be like the most one of the most valuable commodities that we have, um, is trust. And I know this sounds a little cheesy to some, but look, you're like reading the news, you're watching the news, you're looking at your social media, and people don't know what to trust anymore. And so what they're looking for is, where can I go to just, boil this down? Who can give me honest feedback and information? I'll give you a good example. We've got this redistricting referendum happening right now. And I voted for redistricting reform. I was just one of a few Democrats who voted with Republicans to like have this redistricting commission because I thought it was better than what we have. And I still believe that. Um, and people are sending me messages and about it, and I'm like, the reality is it sucks. Like, there's nothing great happening about this election that's April 21st. Trump told these Republican states, get rid of these Democrats in Congress. And so Virginia has a choice to make. Do we want to counter that with the midterm elections coming up? And I don't celebrate it. And I think it's awful for democracy, all of it. And we are voting yes, and supporting that to ensure that we're pushing back against Trump, who's trying to steal these midterm elections. And, that's kind of the honest reality behind it. Yes, Democrats are voting, are asking you to vote to essentially gerrymander to counter some of the other gerrymanders. So that way the U.S. House isn't stolen. And,
And now,
I
would Virginia have done this? Would Virginia have done this just out of their own wanting to?
no, no, I don't think, absolutely not. I think that certainly it would not have passed the General Assembly. The General Assembly would not have passed something um, that would have permanently repealed that because there's just not the appetite for it. And I certainly would be against it. But what I'm getting at is, can we have what we need to be are individuals who are trying to provide information as clear as possible. And if somebody's telling you that the the April 21st election is the worst thing ever, it's the best thing ever, neither one is true. It's just here we are. We're in this war. And after they stole the Supreme Court seats years ago, I see that they will stop at nothing. Some of these interests to attack our democracy.
Yeah, what I like to point people back to is that Democrats are on the record of trying to ban partisan gerrymandering. HR 1 back in, I think, 2019 is what passed the House, but the Senate didn't. So, should we be able to flip the House and the Senate and eventually the presidency in 2028, then come inauguration 2029, within the first 100 days, we could very well see the end of partisan gerrymandering uh, through a Democratic House, Senate, president. So that's the long term vision. That's why democracy is not a spectator sport. There's a lot of elections happening in Virginia right now, and Virginia has elections every year, but as of late, it's every other month where we're having elections. So, Sam, for people out there who may be experiencing voter fatigue, any word of advice?
Yeah, I think that right now this is the kind of the most active way for us to play a role. And I tell people, here's the secret to elections that sometimes gets lost is that vote every chance you get, no matter if you care about the election or not. The reason is because when candidates like me and you, when we decide on our platform, just like the poll that you just showed, we poll, who do we poll? We poll likely voters.
Mhm.
And so when you vote, you get put into the database as a more and more likely voter. We poll you more and more, and that becomes the substance of our campaigns, right? So people are seeing 85, 86% in against this genocide. I promise you that that's going to change the way some people are talking about the genocide.
Mhm.
And you want to make sure that you're doing your part. And I know it can be tough, and I tell folks like we're punching holes in darkness sometimes, and that's what we know how to do, and that's what we need to be able to come together and do as we move forward.
Mhm. Zan has another question here. Do you not believe that running in the Democratic Party legitimizes its pacification of our causes?
You know, it's a great question and very legitimate to ask. The reality is, if are voting blue no matter who, then that's a problem, right? I think that everybody needs to be held to account. And if you believe that these primaries are the place where we can have an open battlefield within the party around what um, we should be believing in, what we should be endorsing, to me, that is half the battle. The other half the battle is in the general election. And so I'm not telling you, individuals who want to be part of other parties, Green Party, etc. There's a great case for that. Um, there are cases where third party platforms, knowing they're not going to win, made space for other platforms in future elections to be more progressive. And the but for me, all I can do is answer for me that I choose to fight on behalf of a faction within the Democratic Party that believes in human rights, that believes our tax dollars should be spent, helping those most vulnerable and most in need, and that wants to push back against all of these, special interests who, unfortunately, just have an outsized role. So I won't ever tear down your thoughts around how you're going to approach your politics. All I can do is explain to you what that, like Marianne saying, that long game looks like to me.
Yeah, reform comes from within. I believe that too. And Zad saying our cause is Zad having a Muslim name. I assume Zad's a Muslim, and in Islam, Muslims are taught that the way to fight back against an unjust ruler is to restrain their hand. And the way you restrain their hand is by being within the system, so that you can be a part of that reformation. So that's what we're here for. We're here to reform and help people out.
and look, it's a struggle, and it's a struggle between being right and being relevant sometimes, and
Mm.
finding the balance of you can be like you find people who are just they're amazing social media posts, all this information. They're definitely on the right side of history, but they're lacking in the relevancy of bringing people along. Like you're in the court of public opinion, and you've got to organize, and that's what we're trying to do. And most, as we can't leave this conversation without mentioning that Salam and Salam, we have the same name. He says it a little bit differently. I'll just say he says it incorrectly, but the but my name is Rasoul, um, and which is peace is Salam, and then Rasul is messenger. So we'll try to bring that message of peace all across the Commonwealth, and then Salam. I know you're doing the same, my brother.
Yeah, your name is much more poetic. See, my last name is Bhatti, and for the longest time, I thought that Bhatti was actually light. Like in Urdu, the word but is Bhatti. Bhatti is light. So my full name is Atta was Salam. So that means the gift of peace. So I would tell my friends, "Hey, my name means the gift of a peaceful light," and people would be like, my minds were blown. They're like, "Mine's Brandon. What does that mean?" Right? And then I later learned that it's not Bhatti, it's Bhatti, and Bhatti is like a clay fire oven. So I can't use that poetic verse anymore. So you definitely
Hey, just go with the first one. It's just fine.
gift of a peace.
No one's fact checking, chat GPTing that stuff. Don't worry about it.
So Sam, how can people find you?
You certainly find me on social media. And most importantly, go to your candidates, primary candidates. We're going to have a very active primary field, um, and ask them the tough questions, including me. You got to ask us the tough questions, hold us accountable, um, and make sure that we're continuing to shift this conversation. And like you said, some eyes are on Illinois tonight. There's some pretty active primaries. But Virginia is going to have a pretty active season as well.
That's right. That's right. So if you're not from Virginia, pay attention to your primaries, um, and vote because we all know that the House will flip blue in November. But the question is, what color blue? Will it be a navy blue that barely looks blue? Or will it be a sky blue where we have so many more opportunities before us? So our objective here is to create a block, a progressive block through supporting those types of candidates and get them into Congress so we can have a free Palestine, so that we can use our tax dollars to have Medicare for all and all the other good things that 70 other nations have that we don't. So, Sam, I think the everybody wants to know, this is the $1 billion question. What do you look like with a beard?
Mm. I look like when I shave, I feel like I look 10 years younger. And look, this is kind of middle-aged people talking now. I think we're both in our 40s.
Nope.
Uh, you're not in your 40s? I'm in my
Nope.
40s now. So you're still young. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm in my 40s now, and so I'm wanting you to say, "Oh, he's shaven. He's looking younger now, I guess." So you put that beard on me. Maybe I'll look 50.
Dude,
Maybe I'll.
you look like you'd rock a nice beard, you know?
I could, especially if I had the right color beard.
Mhm.
Then I'd get it all figured out. But I don't get to make these decisions anymore, Salam. These decisions are made by my wife, and this is how you will look right now. Oh, what are you doing? So, but
Yeah.
happy wife, happy life, my friend.
Happy husband, suspicious wife. All right.
There, yeah, that's right.
All right, Sam, thanks so much for your time, for sharing these poll results, for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and for all the work you just finished up doing in the General Assembly. I'm sure we'll see you back in town for a special session.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks everybody. And to all the viewers, you're going to see an email from me. We are splitting the campaign newsletter from Substack. It's going to be its own separate thing a paycheck away will continue in its older form of addressing poverty. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.